Imagine waking up one morning in a place you didn't choose, where every door is locked, every decision made for you, and everyone around you thinks you're too old to matter. That was me. Until I decided to flip the script. Literally. They thought they could trap me. So I bought the whole damn place. My name's Frank, I'm 83, and this is the story of how I turned their plan into my empire. Hit that like button if you've ever felt underestimated. Subscribe if you believe payback doesn't have an expiration date. Let's get into the story. I always believed that raising kids was the greatest investment of time, love, and patience anyone could make. I gave my life to my family. I built my architecture firm from scratch, named our family home after my late wife Susan, and never once thought I'd end up betrayed by my own blood. It started with a fall. I slipped while changing a light bulb in the garage. Nothing broken, just a bruised ego and a nasty scrape. Mark, my son, showed up an hour later, all huff and puff. "You could have broken your neck, Dad. What were you thinking?" I was thinking the bulb was out. Mark didn't laugh. He looked concerned, but not the usual concern. This had a flavor of calculation. The way Vanessa, his wife, kept circling the room like a shark on stilts, taking inventory. "Vanessa, you know, it's not safe for you to be living here alone anymore. Have you thought about options?" Options. Code word for control. Code word for get the old man out of the way. Lauren, my daughter, was more subtle. She brought up memory loss, a few misplaced keys, a missed doctor appointment. "Dad, we love you, but we're worried. What if next time it's worse?" I brushed it off, but they didn't. A week later, Mark shows up with a brochure, Golden Pines Assisted Living. Said it was a temporary visit, just to rest, recover, and socialize. Like a fool, I agreed. 1 week. A weekend, even. That's what they said. What I didn't realize. They had already signed the papers. They had already made me a prisoner. The locks weren't just on the doors. They were on my life, my choices, and my freedom. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about helping me. This was about getting rid of me. They didn't sit me down. They signed me away. Like a damn timeshare. Golden Pines smelled like lemon disinfectant and regret. I remember stepping in, suitcase in hand, and looking around for the lobby's warmth, some welcoming energy. Instead, I saw pale wallpaper, peeling at the corners, plastic chairs, and a reception desk manned by a teenager chewing gum like she had a vendetta against it. "Name?" she asked. "Frank Hawthorne." My son called ahead. She checked her screen. "Oh, yeah. You're the transfer. Right this way. Transfer." Before I could question it, 2 aides, large, silent types, flanked me and guided me down the hall. I was shown to room 214. The door had no lock on the inside. That should have been my first clue. Once they left, I tried to settle in. Opened the nightstand, Bible, tissues, a list of facility rules. One stuck out: residents are not permitted to leave the premises without medical clearance. What? I went to the hallway. A staff member smiled fakely. "Mr. Hawthorne, please stay in your room until orientation." Orientation? I wasn't here for a job. I was here for a weekend. Or so I thought. I asked for my phone. They said it would be kept at the front desk for safety reasons. I asked to call Mark. "You can call during the scheduled communication hour, sir." That's when I knew. This was no visit. This was a setup. Later that night, I overheard 2 nurses outside my door. His son said to keep him on the low-dosage Valium, just to help him stay calm. He gets confused easily. I sat up in bed. Confused. They were medicating me? I searched my drawers again. Found the blister packs. Half the names didn't even match my chart. Some pills weren't even labeled. This wasn't just elder care. This was containment. I tried to leave that night. Tried to walk out the front door. A security guard blocked me. "Sorry, sir. You're not cleared to exit. I'm not an inmate. I'm a guest. No, sir. You're a resident. That word again. Resident. Like I lived here. Like I belonged here. He pointed to a file on the desk. I leaned over and saw my signature, poorly forged, on the admission paperwork. Mark had signed me in. They weren't helping me. They were silencing me. And as I sat back down on the stiff twin bed, one thought crossed my mind. They think I'm old, tired, and weak. Good. Let them think that. I'll own the damn keys. Golden Pines had a morning routine that rivaled prison. 6 a.m. wake up, 7 a.m. meds, 7:30 a.m. breakfast. I played along, smiled at the staff, took the mystery pills, hid them under my tongue, spat them out later. And every day I studied their patterns, the shift changes, the delivery windows, the one unlocked door between the kitchen and the garbage chute. On day 4, I made my first escape attempt. I slipped out during bingo night, crawled into the laundry chute, made it down 2 floors and landed in a bin of dirty bedsheets. I almost laughed. Freedom never smelled so bad. I made it as far as the parking lot before a night nurse spotted me on the security feed. 2 burly orderlies dragged me back inside like I was a stray dog. "Mr. Hawthorne, you're going to hurt yourself," one said. "You mean I'm going to embarrass you?" I replied. That night, they doubled my meds. But I wasn't alone. That's when I met Harold. Harold was 90, legally blind, but sharper than a tack soaked in whiskey. We met in the library, where nobody ever went. "I saw you try to bolt," he said, sipping lukewarm tea. "You're not the first." He told me stories about residents who'd come in with full faculties and ended up as drooling shells in 6 months. About money missing from accounts. Families that stopped visiting. "They're selling us," he whispered. "Piece by piece. One insurance claim at a time." At first, I thought he was just paranoid. But then I remembered the strange pills. The forms I didn't sign. The way my phone never got returned. Harold handed me a napkin. On it were scribbled names, residents, former staff, one nurse he trusted named Maria. "Talk to her," he said. "She knows what they're doing. But she's scared." Scared of what? Golden Pines wasn't just a trap. It was a business. A dirty one. And if what Harold said was true, I was now deep inside something worse than I imagined. They weren't just locking me up. They were cashing me out. I stopped resisting. Not because I gave up, but because I was planning something bigger than a sprint through the parking lot. I started playing the part, took my meds, still faked it, smiled at the staff, participated in the daily activities. I even volunteered to read during movie nights. Let them think I was softening. Harold and I met daily in the library. We mapped out everyone, which staff seemed robotic, who looked guilty, who flinched when we mentioned patient rights. Maria, the nurse Harold had mentioned, was different. She didn't smile like the others. She looked tired, wary, and deeply uncomfortable every time she handed me my so-called medication. One afternoon, I asked her point blank, "Do you know what they're giving us?" She hesitated, glanced over her shoulder, and whispered, "No one's supposed to question that." Bingo. I slipped her a note that night, just a phone number, Saul Kendrick, my old lawyer. If she called, I told her she'd be protected. The next day, Maria slipped a file under my tray at breakfast. It contained medical records, real ones, altered charts, prescriptions that didn't match diagnoses, even 2 signed DNRs for patients who were still alive. I had what I needed, proof. Now, I just needed power. Golden Pines was part of a private equity chain. I remembered the name from a portfolio Mark once bragged about investing in. And that's when the idea hit me. What if I didn't just expose them? What if I bought them? Harold thought I was joking. I wasn't. I called Saul, explained everything. He got me in touch with my old friend, Alan Greer, venture capitalist, Vietnam vet, poker buddy, and multimillionaire. Alan laughed when he heard the story. You want to buy an assisted living facility from inside the facility? Damn right I do. Alan paused. Well, Frank, I never could beat you at chess. Let's play. Through shell companies and legal gymnastics, we started buying up shares of the parent company. Saul traced the holding firm, Seraphim Wellness Holdings, LLC. Their shares were scattered across disinterested investors and crumbling healthcare REITs. With Alan's funds and Saul's strategy, I acquired 14% in the first 2 weeks. Golden Pine's value was plummeting from lawsuits and quiet whistleblowing complaints. Most shareholders were eager to sell, especially when the offer was just high enough to suggest the place had hidden value. They had no idea the man behind the curtain was living in room 214. Maria funneled internal memos and expense reports to me. Harold handled resident morale. I even recruited Betty, a former nurse turned resident, to help dig up personnel files. Within a month, we owned 48%. We needed just 3% more to gain controlling interest. And then I'd have the keys. Not just to my room, to the entire damn building. You ever heard the saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Yeah, that became my mantra. The thing about being underestimated is, it's a superpower. People say things in front of you, hide things in plain sight, and assume you're too senile to notice. That's when I started gathering my ammo. Not guns, mind you, but information. I began with Larry. Larry was a retired locksmith. Parkinson's had made his hands shaky, but his mind? Razor sharp. I caught him fixing a busted drawer one afternoon using a nail file and a paperclip. I pulled up a chair. You ever pick a lock? I asked casually. He gave me a sideways look. What, you want out? No, I said with a grin. I want in. All the way in. That's when he leaned in, eyebrows raised. You planning something, Frank? I'm preparing something, I said. And you're my first recruit. Over the next few weeks, I built what I started calling my internal resistance. There was Doris, a retired IRS auditor with a memory like a trap. She began misplacing her medication and quietly documenting what she found on the pharmacy logs. The numbers didn't match. Pills were going missing. The staff was stealing. Then there was Ramon, a quiet man who used to work in IT for a bank. He figured out how to tap into the facility's Wi-Fi and gain access to internal emails. Passwords here were a joke. One of the nurses literally used password 123. Ramon printed out emails between the facility director, Meg, and a real estate developer. Turns out, they were funneling funds and preparing to sell the place. But first, they needed to quietly reduce liability, code for getting rid of the older, sicker residents. Frank, Ramon whispered, handing me the email printouts. They're planning to expedite transitions for folks who cost too much. I looked at him. They're planning to kill them. Meanwhile, I started sweet-talking the staff. I played chess with Jerry, the night security guard, and accidentally beat him every time. I left candy bars on the cart for Tiffany, the youngest nurse on the floor, and listened to her vent about being underpaid and overworked. Bit by bit, I made myself invisible in the best way. Meg, the director, she thought I was finally adjusting. Called me an example of healthy compliance. I smiled through my dentures and offered to help with the welcome committee for new residents. That's when I met Henry. Henry was new, confused, and scared. His daughter had signed him in and then ghosted. He was on a mountain of medications, most of which made no sense. I read his charts, thanks to Tiffany leaving her tablet open one night. He was being sedated, not treated. I took Henry under my wing, taught him how to play poker, and introduced him to the team. The resistance was growing. We had an accountant, a nurse ally, a locksmith, an ex-hacker, and a pissed-off tax expert. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was justice. The first domino had to fall quietly. No alarms, no noise, just a shift in power, subtle, deliberate, and irreversible. That's when I called our first official meeting. It was 2:30 a.m. The hallway cameras were on a 10-minute delay Ramon had rigged. Doris had posted a decoy silhouette on her bed to make it look like she was asleep. Larry slipped out in his wheelchair, and I wheeled Henry next to me like we were just out for a stroll. We met in the old craft room, long abandoned, full of dusty ceramic swans and fake ivy. We sat in a circle like a bunch of geriatric revolutionaries. And in a way, we were. "I'm not just here to make them pay," I said. "I'm here to take over." Larry chuckled. "You want to own the place?" I nodded. "Why not? I've got the money. My kids don't know it, but I sold off my coin collection and 2 properties before they stuck me in here. They thought I lost my faculties. I didn't. I liquidated." Doris raised an eyebrow. "How much are we talking?" "Enough to make a cash offer they can't refuse." Ramon tapped his folder. "With these documents showing fraud and elder abuse, you might not even have to pay much." "Exactly. We formed committees, like some weird HOA for revolution. Doris would handle documentation. Ramon continued gathering digital proof. Larry got to work on mapping out every door, lock, and key schedule. Henry was on distraction duty. His confused chatter would buy us time in a pinch. And me? I started making friends with the board of directors. That's right, Sunnyvale wasn't owned by Meg. It was part of a larger conglomerate of facilities, owned by a shell company managed by, wait for it, a private equity group out of Atlanta. They'd never set foot here. They only saw numbers. So I did what any old man bent on revenge would do. I scheduled a lunch meeting. Through a contact I still had from my real estate days, I arranged a casual investor inquiry. I posed as a wealthy retiree looking to diversify into healthcare facilities. When I told them I was interested in acquiring Sunnyvale, they perked up. One of them even laughed and said, "Honestly, it's a money pit. We've been thinking of unloading that one anyway." Bingo! I asked for a tour, posing as a potential buyer. Meg nearly swallowed her tongue when I walked in with the investors. She kept smiling, of course, but I could see the tremble in her hands. After they left, she cornered me. "What are you playing at, Frank?" she hissed. I leaned in, smiled, and said, "You locked me in. Now I own the keys, the locks, and soon, your job." She paled. "You can't do this. Watch me." That night, she tried to kick me out of Sunnyvale, claimed I had violated privacy protocol. But she underestimated one thing: paper trails. Doris had already sent our documentation anonymously to the state's Elder Care Regulatory Board and 3 local news stations. The next morning, a reporter showed up. The day after that, an unannounced inspection. Meg cracked. She started shredding files, literally, and tried to pin everything on a nurse named Tabitha who had already quit months ago. But the emails Ramon found clearly had her name on every authorization, every dose, every missing dollar. I called my contact at the equity firm and made the offer official. 3 weeks later, Sunnyvale was mine. Not just the building, but the entire operation. And Meg, oh, she didn't even show up to her termination hearing. Too busy lawyering up. But me, I showed up with a tie, fresh-pressed slacks, and the biggest damn smile you've ever seen. I was no longer just a resident. I was the owner. I knew we couldn't just rely on gut feelings anymore. We needed proof, undeniable, camera-worthy, throw it in their face kind of proof. So I turned to Gladys. Gladys was 83, sharp as a tack, and used to work security at a casino in Reno. Her poker face was legendary, but more importantly, she knew how to work hidden cameras. "You give me a baby monitor and a good coffee thermos," she said, "and I'll show you what those bastards are up to after hours." With Ramon's help, we rigged up cameras in common areas. Nothing fancy, an old webcam here, a motion sensor rigged to a GoPro there. We used the broken air vents and light fixtures. They never suspected a thing. Within days, we had footage. Meg, the director, ordering nurses to over-medicate patients, just enough to keep them compliant. Nurse Blake throwing out untouched meals and logging them as served. Staff mocking residents, calling them dead weight. And worst of all, night staff dragging Henry to the wrong room, locking him inside, and turning up the thermostat to unbearable levels. "This is abuse," Doris said, voice shaking as she watched the footage. "No," I said. "This is war." The problem was, no one outside was willing to listen. When we tried sending the footage to a local reporter, the emails bounced. When Doris called Adult Protective Services, they told her they'd look into it. We needed a bigger move. Something public. Something explosive. Ramon came up with the idea. A live stream. We hijacked the community movie night. Instead of showing Casablanca, we streamed the abuse footage straight to the TV, he said. "It'll have to be quick," Gladys added, "before they kill the power." We set the date for Friday. The popcorn was popped. The common room packed. Meg was all smiles, making her rounds with that fake cheer. And then, the movie began. Only it wasn't Casablanca. It was Meg's voice, clear as day, saying, "Just sedate him. I don't care if he's drooling." The room went silent. Gasps. Shouts. A few cried. Meg lunged for the projector, but Ramon had locked it from his tablet. Staff tried to shut off the feed, but we had backups. One stream to the projector. One directly to YouTube. Within minutes, the video had hundreds of views. 10 minutes later, the police were at the door. The chaos after the live stream was unlike anything I'd seen in my 78 years. Police swarmed the facility, escorted Meg out in handcuffs, and the remaining staff scurried like cockroaches under a flipped light switch. For the first time in a long time, the halls of Rose Meadow were quiet, but not in that eerie, medicated way. This silence buzzed with hope. We thought it was over. We were wrong. Corporate showed up 3 days later. Suits, briefcases, and crocodile smiles. Due to recent media exposure, the regional manager announced, this facility will be undergoing restructuring. Restructuring meant rebranding. New signs, same rot underneath. They offered us settlement papers, NDAs, hush money, promises of a better tomorrow if we just kept our mouth shut. I refused to sign. So did Doris. So did Ramon, Gladys, even Henry. That's when I remembered something my late wife always said. If the system is broken, don't wait for it to fix itself. Buy the damn wrench and do it yourself. So I did. I hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a firecracker named Kayla who specialized in elder abuse cases and made courtrooms cry. We sued. We made noise. And while the courts dragged their feet, I made calls. Found a few investors. Turns out, a retirement facility isn't hard to buy if the owner's public image is in flames. 2 months later, after a ruthless bidding war and a little manipulation of public sentiment, I did it. I bought Rose Meadow. Walked in the front doors like a king returning from exile. "Welcome back, Mr. Grayson," said the new receptionist. "Wrong," I replied. "It's owner Grayson now." The first thing I did, fired every single staff member who ever looked the other way. The second, promoted Gladys to head of security. The third, created a residence board, run by us, for us. I restored the kitchen budget, rehired nurse practitioners who actually cared, and banned any sedatives without patient and family approval. We renamed the place too, Freedom Pines. Ramon cried. Doris baked cupcakes. And Henry, he danced in the courtyard. But power comes with pressure. The media wouldn't leave us alone. People called me a hero, a disruptor, a rebel. But I wasn't any of those things. I was just tired of being treated like I didn't matter. That's the thing about getting older in this country. People assume you've lost your fire. But mine's just getting started. The weeks after the takeover felt like spring blooming in slow motion. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were thriving. Laughter returned to the dining hall. Music floated through the corridors. And for the first time in years, people hugged without fear. Ramon started a salsa class. Doris ran a baking workshop. Henry, who swore he hadn't spoken publicly since '84, hosted storytime for visiting grandkids. And I watched, grinned, participated, and slowly, I healed. But something unexpected happened too. People started moving in, not because they had to, because they wanted to. Freedom Pines got attention, the kind of attention that made people rethink what aging could look like. One afternoon, I was walking the garden trail when a woman with a cane and a sharp bob stopped me. "You Frank?" "Depends who's asking." "Name's Jeanette. I saw your story online. My daughter wanted to put me in some big box place with bingo and bad pudding. I told her I'd rather die. Then I found this." She handed me an application, already filled out. I grinned. Welcome home. We had volunteers too, young people who wanted to learn from us, college students, nurses in training, kids who never had grandparents of their own. And slowly, walls melted, generations mixed. We created something strange and beautiful, a village. We held town hall meetings under fairy lights, movie nights on the lawn, even open mic poetry nights where Henry shocked everyone by reciting original haikus about prune juice. But the best part, no one felt forgotten anymore. The world may still age us, ignore us, shove us aside, but here, we mattered. Every wrinkle had a story, every scar, a badge. I wasn't just a resident. I wasn't just the owner. I was family. And damn, it felt good. It came in a plain white envelope. No return address. Just my name, typed in neat block letters. Franklin M. Delaney. I almost tossed it into the recycling bin. Thought it was another insurance scam. But something about it, maybe the weight, maybe the timing, made me stop. Inside was a letter, typed, 1 page. Frank, we were wrong. You were never supposed to see what we did. But you did, and you fought back. We underestimated you. There are others. Places like Green Hill. Places worse. If you want to stop them, you'll need this. Attached was a flash drive and a single postscript. Meet me, 11 p.m. Bus bench behind the library. Come alone. No name, no hint. Just a whisper from the shadows of the system I'd just dismantled. Now look, I may be 82, but I wasn't born yesterday. This screamed trap. But curiosity has always been my weakness and my strength. So I went. I wore black. Took my old marine boots out of storage. I even duct taped a pocket knife to my cane, just in case. At 11:02 p.m., a man sat next to me. Mid-50s. Wore a hoodie and the kind of sunglasses that scream, "I'm trying too hard to be anonymous." "You opened it?" he asked. I nodded. That drive has video files, documents, transfer orders, names. Why me? He smiled sadly. Because you made noise and you didn't die for it. He stood. Freedom Pines can be more than a home. It can be proof. Then he walked away. I returned to my room, plugged in the drive. What I saw chilled me. Hidden camera footage of staff abusing residents. Emails coordinating budget cuts disguised as efficiency protocols. Secret ownership structures that led back to politicians. It wasn't just Green Hill. It was a network. I stayed up all night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. Expose them. All of them. And not with some dusty lawsuit. With a movement. Freedom Pines wouldn't just be a safe haven. It would be the headquarters of a senior revolution. We had lived through wars. We'd seen empires fall. Now it was time to dismantle one more. One fraudulent facility at a time. Freedom Pines was no longer just a nursing home. It was a fortress, a media hub, a symbol. Senior citizens across the country began tuning in to our live streams. We held Elder Leaks sessions weekly, exposing shady facilities, reading out names of corrupt board members, and showing footage from brave insiders who joined our cause. Operation Greystorm had gone viral. A 90-year-old woman from Ohio led a sit-in protest with walkers and wheelchairs. In Florida, 2 retired lawyers filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of over 200 abused residents. Even a former senator called me and said, "Frank, you've done more in 6 months than we did in 6 decades." But not everyone was happy. The people we'd exposed came crawling. Lawsuits, threats, bribes. They offered to buy me out for $10 million. I told them I'd rather eat oatmeal forever than sell my soul. And then came the congressional hearing. I testified under oath. Wore my old army blazer, medals and all. Millions watched. And when they asked, "Mr. Delaney, what started all this?" I looked into the camera and said, "They locked me in, so I bought the keys, the locks, and the entire damn place." That line became a rallying cry. They printed it on shirts, bumper stickers, mugs. Even a hip-hop remix came out. It went platinum in the 65-plus retirement TikTok scene. Don't ask. And me? I stayed at Freedom Pines. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. We built gardens, a radio station, even a rooftop bar called The Last Call. And every Friday night, I sit out on the porch with Edna, my dog Rufus, and a glass of bourbon. Because I didn't just survive the system, I flipped it. And every time someone asks me how I did it, I just smile and say, old age isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of the real fight. Thumbs up like this story. Smash that like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more senior-powered stories of justice, rebellion, and a good dose of attitude.